So we have been keeping chickens for a little over 3 years now, and our last coop, our first coop actually, was made all of scrap materials. For this time around, I wanted something that was going to be beautiful and functional and exactly what we needed, including all of the features that I wanted in a chicken coop. I knew that I wanted something to match our dream house that we're currently building. Plus, we have learned so much in the past 3 years that, we needed to incorporate all of that in our new chicken coop, all right? We have learned so much from keeping the predators out to making sure the chickens have a functional space and just reducing the overall amount of work for us, right? We don't like doing extra work, and we want our entire homestead, our entire property to be as self-sufficient and as maintenance-free as possible, all right? So we knew we wanted to incorporate some of our lessons learned into the new features of this coop. And that really started with keeping a very clean coop. All right, so one of the issues with our last coop is that it was always getting super dirty. And as you can see, even though, we just put this down, so it will change over time, but this coop is pretty clean so far. And that really starts with not having anything for water to accumulate onto. So as you can see, right, we don't have any flat surfaces in here. We have the roosting bars. We have the roosting bars, and we have like this feeder in here. You can see the feeder is a trash can. It has a rounded lid. So even though they are able to stand on this, right, you can see a little bit of the like the dirt and poop and stuff. But for the most part, like water, right? Thank you for demonstrating, Chicky. As you can see, water though does not sit on here. Water will not sit on here. Water will run off of this surface, which means that they cannot drink the water. All right, the same thing over here with this nesting box. All right, they can stand on this, but not for very long, right? They tend to slide off because it is angled. And water just cannot accumulate onto this surface. All right, so that is something that we learned in one of our last coops, or in our only last coop. We had like a flat box for them, and that was their feeder. And really that didn't work out very well because standing water got on there, and that creates a problem in the form of what's known as Coccidiosis. All right, I think I'm saying that properly. I can never remember how to say it. I have to look at my phone to make sure I'm pronouncing it the right way. Someone let me know in the comments below if I'm actually saying that properly. But that really creates the problem. If they have a lot of standing water in their coop, they drink that standing water, right? And they're also pooping in that standing water, all right? Which, as you can tell, is super gross, all right? If they're drinking poopy water, that creates a whole nother set of issues and disease, and it's just not good for anybody involved, and then they get really sick, and then you have to treat them for that. So that is one way that keeping a clean coop, all right, makes your flock so much healthier. And of course, by not having anywhere for them to like constantly poop on and just accumulate, all right, then that just makes our coop less poopy, with less flies and all of that. Now, another thing that keeps this space clean is our pine nuggets here, all right? So I have been using these for, I want to say, 2.5 years. So we started out with pine shavings, and then we tried a whole bunch of different things, including sand and, just different materials, straw, all of that. And we settled on pine bark nuggets, all right? You can buy these at like the garden center. They come in bags. I think it's like 2 cubic feet. And this just covers basically the entire run, all right? Or our coop floor, or whatever you want to call it in here. This really helps because it doesn't break down nearly as fast, right? Pine shavings break down super quickly, which means that we are constantly having to replace the pine shavings in here, which is, first of all, expensive, all right? It's, I think, like $5 for one of those pine shaving things, depending on where you get them. That's how much we pay for them. But $5 every month, or, however many times you're replacing them per month, that ends up being a lot, and plus we would need more than one of those bags to fill this space. So that prevents us from having to spend money on pine shavings, all right? But also this breaks down much slower, but then also the ammonia smell is gone. We used to have a huge problem with the ammonia smell because it was breaking down so quickly, and the entire coop just smelled gross and like ammonia, all right? Which is the sign of a bad, dirty coop. You don't want that. So by putting these pine nuggets in here, all right, it really helped to get rid of that problem. And this stays pretty much clean. And then once a year, we're able to come in here and harvest all of the compost, right, that does eventually break down and decompose, and this pretty much stays clean. Now we do try to put these down right before the rainy season. As you can see, right, they're like a hard wood mulch, like they're landscaping mulch kind of thing, and so they're pretty large, takes them a bit to break down, but they don't really absorb a whole lot, which means that the water kind of like filters through, and it doesn't get muddy in here. Now, another way that we prevent mud is by keeping this entire thing roofed. All right, so you can see like there's no open roofing on here. This is all these like metal sheet, I don't know what you call the like corrugated metal sheets or whatever that you find at the hardware store. So this covers the entire thing. They are screwed on by that board here, this 2x4. They're screwed on the front, and then they are screwed on these beams as well from the top. And the entire roof is slanted, so it, you know, it doesn't have that same issue of standing water on the roof that our last one did. It won't gather like a whole bunch of other materials and stuff. And this really prevents rain from falling directly in here. Of course, right, if it's raining quite a bit and it's windy, you still have access and it's open, right? So water will still get in here, but having the roof covered like this prevents a ton of mud. The other thing that prevents the coop from being super dirty and having that ammonia smell is the fact that we have tons of ventilation. All right, the entire thing is open. The entire thing is open, and as you can see, all right, every side of this is completely exposed. Now that does two things. It first of all prevents like a wall, an additional wall for stuff to like stick to and get dirty. So if you have a plywood side of the coop, that plywood, even though it's on the wall, that plywood is eventually going to get full of poop and other stuff stuck to it. So that prevents that issue. And two, it gives you more ventilation. So the more ventilation you have, as much as possible, for my climate, all right, if you live in a colder climate, if you're up north, in like the northern United States or somewhere else that gets much colder where it snows, you probably want some insulation to keep warmth in. We want the actual opposite, all right? It does not get very cold here, even in the winter months, and we want as much ventilation as possible in this coop. Now, another thing that keeps this coop super clean, specifically when it comes to eggs, is this nesting box. So we used to have a nesting box, and I'll insert the clip here, that just the eggs were constantly being cracked and dirty, and cracked eggs always lead to a mess inside the coop, all right, because the yolk and the white of the egg, it just creates a hot mess, and then the rest of the eggs are rolling around in there and sticky, and it's just all gross. So this nesting box, I'll show you from the outside, is actually really great at keeping our eggs clean. The hens jump onto this bar, right, the roosting bar, and then they go inside there. And then we're able to open it, right? It has little Preadator latches on here that I can close. And when I open it, we get nice clean eggs. Look at that. And I promise you guys, I did not clean these eggs beforehand. As you can see, there's like some scuff marks on them, but they're not super dirty, all right? And this comes out, right? I can lift this up, and it is plastic, so I can clean this out. I can hose it off, all of that, and that just gives an extra layer of clean to our coop. Okay, so the last thing on a clean coop before we move on to like the other features of the coop that don't have to do with cleanliness is this Run Chicken automatic chicken door. Now I currently have it closed, and they are not free ranging because they are still getting acclimated to their coop. They've only been here a week and a half or so, and I want them to get used to the fact that this is their new home. But when I put the batteries back in here, right, this is like the battery area, I just unscrew this, I pop the batteries back in. They do make some that are solar powered, but I like having the batteries because, as you can tell, if I look all the way up here, this area is very shaded out by trees. All right, so I like that it is battery operated. I don't have to depend on the sunlight. And then this opens and closes. It opens at dawn, closes at dusk, or you can actually program it to be a certain time. All right, you press this little button here on the bottom side, There's like a little button there, and then you can program it to do whatever time you want to open and close at a certain time if you don't want that to align with like the light sensor dusk to dawn type of thing. I will leave both of these, right, the Run Chicken automatic door and the hen gear nesting box, in the description to this video. These are both lifesavers. It prevents me from doing extra work, and I would definitely recommend them. Now back here on the inside of the coop, there are two very specific things that help us not have to worry about taking care of the chickens or maintaining them. Of course we take care of them, but really we only do the feeding and watering stuff once a month, maybe. All right, and that's the feeder here. You can see they're eating out of these little port feeder things, the little blue things. I will also link those below, as well as an entire video on how to make this feeder. But this is a, I want to say 30-gallon feeder. All right, it's a trash bin. I don't remember exactly how many gallons it is. You can go watch the video if you want, but this basically holds a whole bunch of feed, right? So it holds, I think it's like 3 bags, and of course we fill this as needed. It usually ends up being, I think, like once a month. Just put it back in place, and then you're pretty much good to go until they run out or until they get low or whatever it is. They go in there, eat as needed. As they grow, you can prop it up or whatever it is you need to do. But I mean, this prevents us from having to feed them nonstop, and I don't think that they eat, I don't think that they eat any more or any less. Let me actually get this lid back on here. But this has really been a lifesaver in not having to like come out here twice a day and feed them. The second thing that I think is a major lifesaver is this automatic water. So let me duck behind our roosting bars here so I don't hit myself. This area for our water, this is a 55-gallon barrel. I think we got it off like Facebook Marketplace or something. We cleaned it out, made sure it was all nice and like, you know, decontaminated and whatever. We did originally on the other coop have it connected to a gutter system. As you can see, we don't have gutters on this coop, and I don't know if we will be putting them on, to be honest with you guys, because I think we might be switching it over to well. But for right now, we have the rain barrel system, and so if ever we need to fill it up, we can. So far it rains a lot, and you know, it just fills up by itself. You can see here, yeah, that's pretty much like to the top. And you can put like a net over it or something if you need to. But that funnels into this tube here, right? This garden hose. And then that funnels into this tube, this 2 by, I think it's like a 3-inch PVC maybe, or 2.5-inch PVC, something like that. And it has these little nipples on it, these poultry nipples. And, right, I can get some water out here. The chickens know to peck on them. I think I heard that like the red is actually good for chickens, like attracting chickens, which is why like a whole bunch of stuff for chickens is red. But basically they know to peck at that. They've been trained to do that, and as soon as they need water, they just come and get it. So as far as feeding and watering go, I mean, that's pretty much as hands off as it gets. I really don't do a lot with feeding and watering them. Of course, once the system is actually connected to a well, then that will be even easier, because I won't have to check the bucket to make sure the gallon, you know, 55-gallon barrel, to make sure that it's actually full. It will have like an auto pump on it or whatever, or a float valve is the word I was looking for. And so that will take care of the watering, and then, you know, every once in a while I'll come in here and dump the feed bags. But yeah, as far as watering and feeding, that is as easy as the setup gets. All right, so then back here on the outside of our coop, all right, I have a little lock, which isn't really a predator-proof thing. It's more of like a people-proof thing, all right, because we have construction going on around the house, and kind of like worried that somebody's gonna go in and, you know, mess with the chickens or whatever, which has happened in the past. But for predator-proofing the coop, I wanted to show you guys before I actually bury this. All right, so you can see I have some hardware cloth here on the edges, and then the rest of it around, right, this is just like an extra little piece here. The rest of it around is chicken wire. So this is actually screwed. This is actually screwed in, as you can see there, to the bottom of the coop, and it extends about 2 feet, and eventually, all right, either, right, I have it held down here, but what I'll do is I'll like dig this area up and put it underneath, or maybe just throw some compost or something on top of it so it's kind of buried, as long as it's held down, which is kind of like why I have those things there. I'm gonna replace that, but for this video I wanted to show you what it actually looked like. And so we have this so that nothing can actually dig on the outside of the coop, which we have had happen. All right, essentially something would start digging here on this side. All right, they would try to go that way under the coop and then come out inside the coop and then eat or kill all the animals. That has happened to us in the past, multiple times actually. So now on every coop moving forward that we will ever have, we will forever include this little predator skirt around. The same thing applies to this hardware cloth. All right, instead of having chicken wire, we have 1/4-inch hardware cloth. It is a little bit more expensive, but if it means we don't get to, we don't lose any animals because of it, nothing can reach in and grab, right? The little holes are significantly smaller than chicken cloth. You can see my finger doesn't even fit in there, versus chicken cloth where something can potentially put, their fingers or hands or whatever in there and grab something like the chicken's neck or whatever it is. All right, so that really helps in keeping our flock protected and much less work on our part. All right, so for our last category, it's not things to keep the coop clean, although organized kind of applies here, and it's not things to keep them safe, right? The flock safe. It is more functionality wise. All right, so things that make our life a little bit easier, things that, if I had to redo, I would. Things that, we've just learned over time, they're good to have. And that would be these hooks on the back side of the coop. All right, so we have these hooks that we had on our last coop. Actually, we ended up putting them there after a while. They're reused, which is kind of like why they look a little bit rough around the edges. I have this one here, and then this one that the ladder is actually hanging on. You can see the ladder is like, kind of looks like it's propped up, but it's not, it's actually hanging. And then my little egg basket here. So we, on our last coop, had a whole bunch of little hooks that we could just hang stuff. It's out of sight, out of mind. And if we need tools, we can add more of these hooks or whatever, but we can always, we can always just grab stuff from the coop and it's not on the floor. It's a little bit more organized, right? And you can barely even tell it's there. It's just nice to have. Now, the second feature of this functionality is that all of these beams, these 2x4s, right, are pressure treated. So the last time we had a chicken coop, we actually used scrap material, which is great because we saved a whole bunch of money. However, when we went to move it, and even from the outside, or sorry, from the inside, you could tell that it was actually falling apart. So all that wood was decaying. The ones on the floor, so all of these boards that are actually in contact with the ground, they are what's called ground contact pressure treated, which means that they're going to last a lot longer and they will not come apart, all right, in the event that, in the year we have to move it, which hopefully will never ever happen. However, all right, we have gone ahead with the extra precaution and we painted the entire thing and just made sure that, it is as functional as possible and as sturdy as possible as you can get with 2x4s. So those are the main things, all right, the whole list of things that help to make our chicken coop as beautiful and as functional as possible, as clean as possible. All right, for our chickens, they have their nice chicken paradise here. If you want to watch how we actually built this coop from start to finish, then I will leave that video on the screen here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.